Eric. Eric Eastman, my honorable co-host.
There is no Eric.
No,
here.
no, there's not Eric there. Okay, what are you
Honorable
today?
Hopper.
What are you today?
Someone who's on time.
That is correct.
And who is always on time? Honorable Hopper.
Not me for committee meetings.
That's true.
That narrows that down.
So noted. A wizard is always on time.
A wizard is always on.
They are
Yes,
never
true.
late.
Wait a second.
Except when he is.
Right.
And that would be Eric.
That would be Eric. Yes, yes. So what is the deal with your ring?
The ring. I've removed the ring because I
Oh.
found it too controversial. The ring of power has no place in the television studio. After all, it might make me invisible, and who would want that? Everyone.
That's a good point. I don't think the wizard was. Didn't the wizard reject the ring?
Well, yes, I'm not that wizard. Not to be confused with.
You're not Gandalf.
No.
No,
Heavens, no.
you're one of the other ones. You're like the what about that wood guy? The guy that went around.
I don't go enough.
No.
No.
What other wizard was there? There was the one who freaking tried to kill everybody.
Yeah, that would be Saruman.
Saruman. So yes, yeah, I get confused.
He was reduced to a
So which one were you?
sniveling minion of
Wait.
Sauron.
Right. So what wizard are you that's on time?
The one on the Council of 12 that is rarely mentioned. I'm Radagast the Brown.
What was Radagast? What was Radagast? What was
He
the
gets
one?
along with woodchucks.
What was the which I thought Radagast was the one that I said was the nutty one who was in the woods. Is that
Exactly.
you?
I
That's
clean
you?
up nice.
A lot nicer, because in the movie you didn't look so great. You looked a little bit like homeless, pretty much.
Well, when the moss is your bed and
Right.
the sky is your roof, canopy of leaves is home sweet home. You
That-
don't have mirrors, so you don't need to impress.
So.
I'm
Anyway.
not giving you much to go on.
No,
Honorable Hopper, am I?
no, I don't. I think I quit. You won.
I will
You
take
win.
this strange obelisk and dispense of it. I don't think we'll be needing it here,
No,
unless any
no.
orcs show up.
John
and I think
Heichel
we're
hasn't
safe.
showed up yet, so you don't need it yet.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll cast no spell.
Anyway,
Hello.
back to where we were. Tonight we're going to talk about right to know, and we have the Honorable Harriet Cady here to talk about it. You were in the legislature for how many terms?
4.
4. When? Because I know you were in,
2001, I was in with you.
and yeah, for the first couple terms, and I was out for a term and a half. Okay. So you bailed out in
I
2008.
left to become a town administrator.
Oh, okay.
You know, after being in the legislature 4 years at $92 after taxes,
Yes.
I needed some money.
Oh, you're one of those who needs money.
Went
Excuse
back
me,
to
Gary.
work.
Can
Yeah.
we have her put that microphone right in front of her? Just slide it right in front of her.
Slide it to your left, yes.
Thank you so much.
Better?
So,
Yes, now everybody at home can hear you.
okay, so how did you get involved in right to first? Well, let's start from square one, because some people don't know what right to know is. What is right to know?
Right to know is the right to know your government. RSA 91A and Article 8 of the New Hampshire Constitution states that all times the people have the right to know what their government does.
I thought this is top secret information that only the few, the proud, the select could ascertain.
Well, actually, New Hampshire just came in last year, 47th out of the 50 states in transparency, meaning they aren't very transparent.
So they protect their information because information is power. So the more they can protect it, the more the control they have over you.
Right.
So give me a simple example of somebody's wanting to know something that they would require that part enact or
Can I give you a quick example?
quick
Gary?
example
I
of
got
how this
involved
would,
in Right to Know in 1974 when I took a Right to Know suit against the Raymond School Board.
what did those pesky critters do that made you do that?
Well, they went into non-public session after I requested that my gifted IQ'd son, who had an auditory sequential learning disability, would receive a teacher's help after school to look at his notes to make sure he had heard what she had said.
Right. So your son basically had a processing problem where he would hear information, but it would get jumbled
Right.
up.
In the brain, the chemical sending through only sent through 60% of what you said to him.
Okay.
So anyways,
So it's almost like a husband and wife relationship.
I
Not me,
went
I'm
to
just saying
the
other guys.
I went to the school board and I asked, could they just give my son that, in school? Because we had 504-94-192, which said, under federal law, you must give handicapped education.
Right.
I had paid myself, didn't ask the town to pay for it, to have my son tested to see.
What was going on?
Yep. So anyways, what did the school board do? But after hearing my request, picked up and went into non-public session with the superintendent, the principal, teachers, special ed directors, and left me out in the gym.
Right.
So I was crying. I was really a mother saying, I've raised the most money for this school that's ever been raised. I come in and I volunteer all the time. I go on all the field trips. How come?
Yeah, why?
Thinking
Yeah.
if you're a good person, you're entitled to these services, right?
Of course.
Well, any person's entitled to the services. So when I left there, I went home and read the Right to Know law. And what it
How
said,
dare you?
And what it said was under RSA 91A 3, Roman 2C, the board may not go into non-public without the permission of the person who's the subject. I was the subject.
Oh, okay.
So therefore,
Well, what your son was the subject.
well, I was the subject as his guardian.
Okay.
So anyways, I had read Mengi versus Manchester, which was one of the big suits at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up and saw Attorney Michael Callahan and said, can you help me? And he laughed at me and he said, you can do it yourself. And I looked at him and I said, what? He said, you write up the petition telling just what happened, the section they violated, and you take it to the court. You pay the court fee to put it in. The law says they must hear it within 30 days. They do give precedence to hearing a right to know case.
Yep.
And so I went into the court. Very nice court clerk told me once I got the writ, I had to take it to the sheriff's department and have it delivered to the school board.
Right.
So I did that. And of course, sheriff's delivery from Rockingham, Brentwood, to my town was about $60 a person. You had to do 2 people. I have since learned that you can have it delivered to the town clerk and the chairman of the school board, and you've covered. You don't have to call, you don't have to serve all of the board members. You don't have to serve
Right.
everybody. So anyways, did that, went to court, explained where I was at. School board hired an attorney, and I won. Lo and behold, I won.
So how much money did that town spend to defend protecting their decision? Do you
Over
know?
$3,000.
So they spent $3,000 of
Of taxpayer money.
taxpayer money to protect information that should have been available to you, period, and B, they shouldn't have made did the court void the decision because you were
Yes.
not? Okay.
Were there any
That-
kinds of reparations that you asked for or that were appropriate in that case?
Back then, I didn't ask for anything because I said, well, why should I, as the taxpayer, pay my own costs?
Right.
Sure.
Even though that cost, which was at that time about $270, would have been divided amongst all the taxpayers in town.
Right. Right.
Okay. Because when a court makes a judgment against a town or a school district, all of the taxpayers pay.
Yes.
So what I basically did when the judge said, and I'll give you all your costs. I can't give you legal fees because you're not a lawyer.
Right.
But that goes to the next point. Any citizen can go to court pro se. That's the legal term.
Yes.
And serve anybody they want to serve. I've done that 28 times in this state. Many of my right to know cases are because people came to me asking me to help them,
Right.
and I went to court for them until a year ago when Judge Garfunkel said I couldn't represent people. I was a lawyer acting, I was a citizen acting as a lawyer, and we have a law in this state that says a citizen may not represent people unless they're a member of the bar.
An agent of the court, so he's protecting his own.
Yes.
Right. Well, I think that law should be, Gary, don't you think that should be
I
challenged?
thought, well, we have challenged it a few times. Kathy Souza has brought it in to the attention of the Judiciary Committee at least a couple of times.
And I testified for it.
Right, and in those cases, it was because there was a a Manchester gentleman who represents a few different what do you call it? Rental properties. And he would go to court to defend the
Landlords.
landlord-tenant thing, and he knew enough about the landlord-tenant law that he would go to court and represent the organization that he worked for.
Because he was a corporation or an LLC,
Right,
he could only appear in court 3 times to represent his own properties.
right,
So even though he owned them, the courts considered him acting as a lawyer because it was an LLC and it was a corporation, and they owned the properties, not him.
right. So yes, so
That
it
got
based,
changed thanks to judiciary.
yeah,
I'm glad, because a limited liability corporation is a much different entity than an actual full-on
Corporation, yeah.
incorporated entity.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah. So you're right. It's the judiciary. Well, it's not just the judiciary protecting their own and making sure it's the Lawyer Employment Act, but it's also they probably protecting the towns because you were too successful.
Well, 2 of the cases that I took that I'm very proud of was Chaffee versus Sambrington. And we won in that case. Judge Smuckler wrote the decision to say that...
Where do they come up with the names of these judges? Smuckley and Garfield and
I think it's a prerequisite.
Garfunkel
Garfunkel. Sorry.
Love to see
said
it.
the citizen had the right to see their selectmen bodies sign the manifest. The manifest in every town is the list with the checks attached of who they're going to pay.
Okay.
Ah,
Unfortunately, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago, the senator from Hooksett added an amendment to a bill and said the selectman, alderman, can sign the financial statement outside of the meeting. Now, who does that senator serve? Citizens in the majority, 80% of them work. The office is open 8 to 4:30. They work 8 to 4, 8 to 5, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay? They can't get into that building to see that. The only place they might see it is at the night's meeting.
Right.
So anyways, long story short, there's been some laws passed that I don't believe the citizen legislature were thinking of the citizens' ease of knowing their government. Back to right to know. If the legislature, 424 people, really cared about the citizens, and they call themselves a citizen legislature, don't you think they would make laws be thinking of, when would my citizen be available to see this?
Right.
And therefore say, no, the judge was right on. They need to sign that at the meeting so the citizen can walk up after and look at it.
Right.
But we might inconvenience a few selectmen or aldermen or councilmen.
How often do they have to sign these things? I don't even know what I don't know what the manifest is.
A manifest is a listing of all the bills that come in, and they do it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Okay.
The accounts payable and the payroll are the two manifests they sign. Payroll in our town is paid every 2 weeks.
Now, to be devil's advocate, if they're signing it, why does it matter that somebody's witnessing them signing it?
They're not just witnessing it, Gary. They were allowed to go up to the table when they finished their meeting and look at it.
Oh, yeah.
So if I wanted to see
Oh,
a bill
right.
from Joe Blow, who paved a road in town,
Joe does nice work, too.
okay, I could go up and I could look at that bill. Did he charge me for a mile? Did he charge me for a half mile? Did
Right.
he charge
Oh, okay.
me for
Yeah.
1,000 feet?
So you're saying that they wouldn't even let access to that information? That that's you would
I
think.
have access.
I know, but you would think information like that would be online. Like, in other words, I could see it anywhere.
I don't know of
Really?
only one town
not?
that says that they put it online, and that's Belmont.
Wow.
So that would be an easy thing to do, just scan the information, but then again, that's releasing information. And that's creating accountability. So they were making it administratively convenient for themselves, but circumstantially difficult for people to hold them fiscally accountable. Am I correct?
Correct.
I see.
So, the other case that I'm very proud of is Michael and Susan Miller versus the Fremont School Board.
What happened there?
I argued the case for Michael. They were going to build a new school,
Right.
and the school board were discussing all of the details for architects, bonding, etc., online by email. Right to Know says you have a right to watch your discussion as well as the decision making.
Correct.
Fremont was coming in and making a decision. The citizens had no idea how they made that decision.
They
how
have
did
no.
they
Yeah.
come about?
The information leading up to the decision was not available because it was all.
Closed door.
Done on
It was
email.
all done Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the judge said the discussion leading to a decision is as important to the citizen as the decision.
Right.
That has never been overturned nor changed by the legislature. And when I was in the legislature, because more and more decisions were coming down according to the preamble of the Right to Know, which states openness of government is at all times necessary in a free society.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay? Well, openness means you can't do business by email. You can't do business over the telephone. You can't do business by meeting at the country store Saturday mornings, which was another case I had.
Right.
So, what you're looking at is, remember, we left England not to have rulers, right?
Oh, I thought we just didn't like tea or something. I thought we wanted to switch to coffee.
Well,
No?
I think a lot
Bit
of
more
us
to it
like
than
tea,
that.
but anyways, our elected officials, even some appointed, thinking that, gee, they don't have any right to know this. I'm their elected official. Why don't they believe me? How come I have to do this? And then they use the town employees, because they have them under their employment, to carry through that, don't you do this, don't you ask.
Right.
Now, here's another good part of Right to Know. You don't have to tell them why you want it.
Yeah, I wanted to, before we go further, I'd like to, and I'm paraphrasing, but Bob Guida, who Harriet and I are on a Right to Know commission right now, and she's great. I've been struggling with a lot of physical problems, so I go in there and just about have a hard time staying awake. But anyway, Bob Guida, the Senator Guida, the chairman of the commission, said that you pay, as a taxpayer, you pay for everything at town hall. Okay? That's your town hall.
The town hall, the employees, and everything.
You pay for everything. So therefore, any information generated at that facility, unless there's an extreme reason why not, you have a right to. And you don't have to have a reason. They have to have a reason why they can't give it to you, not you have to have a reason to get it.
And that's in the law.
And that's a very simple understanding of Right to Know. But people go down to the town hall, and the town hall tries to protect. The other one people should know about is what is it? What is that guy from the municipal association? The
lobbyist.
Yes, what's his name?
Cordell Johnston.
Cordell Johnson. Get this straight. Most towns and cities in the state of New Hampshire,
232,
pay Cordell Johnson to go to the State House and lobby against them. Your town is paying lobbyists to go to the State House to lobby against their best interest.
And Gary, remember what I told you last week. The New Hampshire Municipal Association has 39 subgroups. The Police Chiefs Association, the City and Town Clerks Association, the Tax Collectors Association, the Planning Directors. You go on and on and on. The administrators, the town managers. We pay their dues too. We pay $1,000 in Deerfield for the police chief's budget so that he can go to Bretton Woods for 3 days. And when I checked the bill at Bretton Woods, not my police chief, but the county attorney had gone up with his assistant, and they had played golf all 3 days, renting a cart and golf clubs on our dime.
Yeah, it's quite incestuous.
So the point of it all is we pay $171,000 for the executive director of the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and then we pay $151,000 for Cordell Johnston, and that was 2 years ago figures. What everyone here should know is that I believe it was 4, maybe 5 years ago, Secretary of State Bill Gardner was brought to his attention that we had the richest securities in the United States, over $600 million. $600 million. It turned out the $600 million was the health trust under the New Hampshire Municipal Association. Now, here's the goodie. The New Hampshire Municipal Association started a health program, insurance sales to towns, and the towns buy all the employees' insurance through that.
Wow.
If you go to Secretary of State Bill Gardner's website, the whole court case is there. The Supreme Court of New Hampshire ruled that the New Hampshire Municipal was quasi-government, so their records were open under Right to Know. And further, that they had to pay back $74 million to the towns and cities of this money they had collected and used for other purposes than health. They had set a cost for health care with a little extra in it so that they could try to drive out other businesses from being competitive under workman's comp and property liability. They also have workman's comp and property liability.
What a racket.
You think
Right
I'm
under our
lying?
noses.
I'm telling you,
So-
go to the Secretary of State's
Okay,
website.
I'm just thinking out loud, so this will come out probably wrong, but that's okay. So basically, your town is giving this organization money for the town's sake, for the police chief, for all these different groups, sending them money, possibly buying insurance from them. And if they're buying insurance from them, that organization would almost by definition recommend the town not pay out. Their lawyer would say don't pay out in case A, B, C, and D because it would be directly coming out of their pocket. So isn't there a conflict of interest? If they're advising the town on legal issues, which is what I understand they do, then
50% of their business.
right. So the town, they would be recommending the town. So say somebody gets hurt at the playground, if they're the one holding the insurance, they're going to, by definition, say nope, don't pay.
Could be.
So isn't there a conflict of interest if they're doing both duties?
In 1960, they put in a bill when
Was that, did I sound logical, or did
when
I lose
Andrews was the executive director, Gary. He came from Maine. And
Yeah.
Andrews told people, I want an income tax in New Hampshire. Maine has one. He lobbied for it strongly. They put in a bill in I've got to say this. There are some friendly legislators to New Hampshire Municipal.
Oh yeah.
And
oh,
they
yeah.
put their bills in. If New Hampshire Municipal goes to a certain legislator from Concord, that legislator will make sure their bill gets in.
Senate
Right.
or House?
Hmm?
Senate or House?
House, but they've got
House.
them in the Senate too.
Okay.
The point is that the bill was killed in 1960. Senator Battles from Kingston fought it vigorously, saying, if they get this, they will become a backdoor of government.
They are a backdoor government.
You got it, Gary. They're in that halls all the time. Our Right to Know Commission meetings every Thursday afternoon has Cordell Johnston there. The other body that's there, I say, is illegal. It's the School Boards Association, which also collects from this. Now, the New Hampshire Municipal Association budget is over $1 million this year. That's the money they're getting from towns and cities in New Hampshire. In '61, the same bill came back. Senator Battles fought it, but due people in the House and Senate, it passed. From that, where they testified, and you can find this out, I did, they testified that we will assist towns in purchasing together quantities so that they won't have to spend as much for supplies, office supplies. Maybe they buy 5 computers for 2 towns or
Right.
whatever.
Almost like an SEAU. Do I get the letters right?
State employees employment.
No. Which one's the one? A bunch of a school district where they'll
SAU.
SAU. Yeah, same kind of idea.
The School Boards Association has never been condoned by the legislature. They have never gotten a law passed to put them in place. And yet, in this state, we have 154, 170, something like that, school districts that belong to the New Hampshire School Districts Association. Here we go again. The Principals Association, the Superintendents Association, the business, the special ed, you go on and on and on, and all the subgroups belong. And all of these groups have conventions just about
Right.
that we pay for.
Have there been more recent efforts to dismantle this?
Goliath, really.
In my opinion,
This
I haven't seen a bill in 20 years that has tried to dismantle it.
I mean,
Well-
it's essentially an NGO masquerading as a part of government. And
In my opinion, we have a 424 member House and Senate, which they should know what's going on in their towns. Bob Guida, our chairman of our Right to Know Commission, has been a selectman in Warren
Yeah.
and now is a school board member in Warren. He rails against the SAUs and how the school boards have turned over their authority to the School Boards Association and let them make the decision. And the SAUs, I'm sorry, turned over their authorities to the superintendents. We have laws in place for both selectmen and school board members and what their responsibilities are. In 1967, when my first child went to school, I started attending school board meetings. I wanted to be aware of what they were doing for my school, for my child. And I'd sit there and I'd listen, and my school board interviewed teachers at that meeting. Do you know now they've gotten a law passed through probably the School Boards Association that says you can't hire a teacher unless it's nominated by the superintendent. Your school board only knows what the superintendent wants to tell them about any candidate they hire.
so they
So they don't actually see the resumes of anybody they're hiring. Or they may not, I should say.
May not.
and they operate with impunity, essentially. The
You elect 'em.
superintendents. Okay.
October 26, tomorrow night, my SAU will have a public hearing on their budget. That is the only place a multi-district SAU that the citizen can attend and tell their school board members that sit around the table, take that out of that budget. I don't want to pay for that.
How many people show up to that?
Most often, nobody.
That's the problem.
Yes, it is.
I know I've sat in a lot of meetings also, and a friend of mine was really, really upset because of he just got his tax bill. And he said, we got to go to the state paying for education. I said, no way. And he says, why? I says, because right this would be a horror show. Right now, most of the money the town gets for education is from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Right now, at least for the time being, if you really wanted to reduce spending at the school, you could actually get involved and go down and vote when they have their meetings, or if you really got your act together, you could get people put on the school board who really wanted to reduce spending. I mean, you still care about the kids, but they could get involved and reduce that tax burden. You could actually functionally do it now. They don't, because in our district, we have the high school which was a mistake. We had ended up.
You have a union.
We teamed. No, not that part. We teamed up with Henniker, and Henniker's super liberal, and Ware is more of a bedroom conservative community. And what happens is
They outvote you.
they outvote us, even though we outnumber them 2-1. And the other thing is, every time there's a budget, what the school board will do is say, well, we're going to try to cut the budget, but first we got to get rid of, football, hockey, this, get rid of all the sports to
Go for
save
the
money.
jugular.
And the arts.
So then the only people that show up for these meetings are the parents that are upset because their kid can't do X, Y, and Z. And that's how they stack the meetings. Oh, well, we're just trying to do our best, and it's all BS. But currently, if people really wanted to change things, they could get involved and substantively change what's going on in their town. As soon as that goes to state, if the state funded it, you lost all control.
Well, how many, just tell the people, how many people show up at a state committee hearing on a bill that's really going to affect them?
Well, just to bring that home, Senator Reagan,
Reagan.
Senator Reagan was floored and wicked angry with Shannon, I forget what her last name was, Cornerstone Policy Research, because she posted on her website that they were going to vote on the funding transgender surgery, and actually told her that he was never going to talk to her again about anything.
Well, that was a GELCAR decision, was it not?
It was GELCAR.
And they don't make policy; they recommend it.
They in this case
There's
they
a lot of
make
influence.
rules.
They make
rules,
rules,
sure.
but there still should be answerable to the people. And a lot of people showed up. A lot of people were upset, and
they didn't listen.
And they didn't listen. And they did. And in fact, Reagan stacked the committee. This is some of the other crap that goes on that you don't know about. He stacked the committee, said only sitting members of the committee could vote. So that meant Representative Bill Ohm, who was there to fill in for somebody, could not vote.
Oh.
And then Carol McGuire, I don't know what she was thinking, voted with Reagan and ended up passing a new rule to allow.
We should tell the people the vote was 6-5.
Yes.
To allow Health and Human Services to put in the rule to fund $1.4 million for transgender changes.
Yeah.
For
gender reassignment surgery.
For children on Medicaid.
But in all fairness, during the entire hearing, the director, the commissioner for Health and Human Services, and I think if you avoid a question, it's the same as lying. So I'm going to say he lied to the committee multiple occasions. Multiple occasions they were at. He was specifically asked, how much does this cost? And he said it's only pennies. He never explained the cost of the operation times the 100 people they know of right now that would be eligible for it, multiplied by the number of people who would want it if it was available. And he never answered the question about if children would be covered, because that was another big deal, because people don't want 13-year-olds to be disfigured because they're confused at 13, which most kids are confused at 13. And he wouldn't even answer that directly. So he basically lied to the committee. Reagan backed him up. Carol McGuire backed him up. And they changed the rules, so now a 13-year-old can have their plumbing changed at taxpayer expense.
Goodness knows, I think if I were in their shoes, I would have voted differently. I think everybody at this table would agree with that. I will say that in their defense, only in so much as that they wanted to make it clear that there was some reasoning behind it, from what I understand, is that they felt that it was the improper venue within which to combat that particular bit of language and that particular initiative.
There was no other.
Why they felt that way, I don't know.
Well, that's disingenuous, because that was the only venue.
If
the people are going to get involved in their government and try to make a difference, and the only time they have a chance to say anything, you shut them down because you don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
Sorry, I know you're paying devil's advocate, but
a little bit.
But
first of all, how many of us think that our children are mature enough at 7, 9, 13 to make that kind of a decision?
They're not.
Of course not.
And yet, that's what can now happen.
I mean, just to build on your point, everybody that's listening to this program knows right now that a 14-year-old cannot buy a car. He cannot legally sign a document to buy a car. And buying a car is a lot less permanent and detrimental if he's made the wrong decision than changing your organs. It's insane.
Well, even worse is that the school cannot give our children aspirin,
Without permission.
but
Good
the school
example.
nurse can tell them they can have an abortion and take them to
A clinic.
facility.
And you end up paying the ramifications for it, even though you were unaware.
I still haven't got an answer to this, Gary. I have written my senators, I have written Congress. When Obamacare came in, it covered everybody, correct?
I think it was supposed to only cover the X number of millions of people who are not covered.
No,
I
no.
don't think it was supposed to cover
It covered everybody. You
optionally.
could have insurance through your work,
Right.
but if your work gave you the
He-
blue collar plan,
Right.
then okay, that was okay. But if your work gave you the Cadillac plan, that company had to pay a penalty
Yes.
for paying for Cadillac plan.
Correct.
So that this would help pay the cost for the very poor who would be covered under insurance with us covering the insurance costs. Now we know from the discussion in the newspapers in the last couple of months that Trump put out a thing, we're not going to pay the insurance companies.
He's doing some great things, by the way.
And consequently, the insurance companies aren't going to cover these people. Oh, by the way, those insurance companies now have to go up on their rates because so many more people are taking advantage of getting insurance than they ever expected. So we have higher rates where we work, and if we pay our own insurance,
Right.
which I do for my supplemental,
Sure.
it's higher. There's just something wrong in a country whose constitution was founded on everybody has equal rights. That means equal rights to work, equal rights to not work. But since when do they have equal rights to reach their hand in my pocketbook to pay for their wants? I was telling somebody the other day, I don't have cable because when my husband died, I lost a Social Security check.
Right.
So I can't afford DirecTV or cable or Dish or whatever.
Mhm.
So my son put an antenna up for me.
Yeah.
And I get along pretty well with it. There's one program I want to see, and I can't unless I find somebody with cable that I can go sit in their living room. But anyways,
What I use is a really good set of binoculars.
you got a neighbor
Do
close
you?
enough.
Just saying. I'm not,
But anyways, the
Is that legal?
The point of my being here is right to know we're far afield, but the point I'm trying to get to people is I have found out all of these things because I served as a school building committee member.
Right.
I served 5 years on a conservation commission. I served 7 years running the recreation program, hiring lifeguards and all the rules and regulations that went with it. And when there was a rule I didn't like, I went to find out how that rule got in place, and I had to go to GELCAR to explain why the rule wasn't right. So I got to know about GELCAR,
Mhm.
Joint Legislative Committee on Rules.
Right.
Okay. Any time an agency says to you, that's the rules, you don't like it, talk to your legislator. Your legislator would have to introduce legislation to take away a rule.
Which is ridiculous. You should, if it's a rule, you should be able to change it just as easily as you created it.
That's exactly right, yeah. A rule was not voted upon. A rule was simply,
But it was voted on by GELCAR,
I know,
which
but
brings
GELCAR
it back to the whole legislature as a consent item on the consent agenda. Back to Right to Know. Gary and I are serving on the Right to Know Commission from a study bill introduced at my behest by Representative Ken Weiler and Representative Kathy Sousa.
Mhm.
Kathy's been a great friend for many, many years of mine, and so when
Oh, by the way, Kathy is also a representative from Manchester and is a very awesome lady.
I remember
Very.
her from the 2 years I
Yeah.
spent there. Yeah.
as one of the most active legislators, chasing bills, making sure that she's there for the hearings and calling the constituents and saying, you were interested in this, get up here and testify, and so forth. Anyways, we couldn't have, 4 years this took to pass, we couldn't have the bill to have the Right to Know Commission pass. So I said to Kathy, they have a rule that I can't have the bill twice in the same session in the House.
Correct.
So I said they didn't say we couldn't have a bill on a study commission.
Correct.
So Kathy put the bill in with Representative Ken Weiler, and Ken serves on Finance Committee, so he carries a little weight in the House.
Yep.
And with that, we got the study commission bill passed
I carry a lot of weight in the house.
through Judiciary, where Gary serves.
No, I was actually talking about my belly.
Well, you voted for it on the committee and recommended it, and it passed the House last year.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it was supposed to start in June, which would have given us more time to study. But we started September 27th.
Yeah.
Of this year.
Yes. And the law said we had to have a report to the legislature by November 1st.
Oh, my goodness.
So with 13 of us on the committee, or is it 15?
Some really good people in that commission, too.
Why did you, just out of curiosity, and the folks at home, why did you have to start in September and not sooner?
Because we had to have 2 people appointed from the House, a person appointed from the Senate, a person appointed from ACLU, a person appointed from School Boards Association, a person appointed from the New Hampshire Municipal. There's their weight again. Went
Nice.
to the lady from Concord on Judiciary. She added those 2 people. Anyways, long story short, we have been meeting under Senator Bob Guida as chairman.
Yep.
Every Thursday afternoon at 1:30 and going till 4 or 5. And I'll tell you, they're an active committee. I write the minutes. I'm clerk. And the minutes are, this week, 25 pages.
Wow.
Anyways,
Wow.
every week they're in the 20s. So we will come up at the end of tomorrow's meeting with our draft report, which some member will type up, and it will be voted on to be handed in as our report to the legislature. Senator Guida, who's the chairman, has said at this point he will probably ask to let us continue meeting a few more times.
We have to have the report done, but we don't, that doesn't mean we necessarily have to stop meeting, in other words.
Right.
Okay.
So, been a very good committee.
Now, which sitting committee in the House, I assume, will be reviewing this report first?
Both bodies will review it, Senate and House.
Both will, okay.
I assume the House Judiciary will get the bill, which Senator Guida is drafting. He has,
House rules say that all bills have to have been in by the end of September. So therefore, it would be left up to Senator Guida, who is in the Senate, who does not follow the House rules,
Right.
obviously, probably to introduce legislation.
he put a placeholder in. That's basically what a legislator can do to assure that the bill comes in and he can have it, because they have a limited period where they can introduce bills.
Yes.
So he will write this bill from our report. We probably won't get it all right the first time, but I'm sure we will get some good out of it. This commission, if it passes, will allow the citizen not to have to go to court. citizens are basically afraid of walking into the court. They can ask for the materials, but if the agency says no, the only one left to enforce the right to know bill is the citizen. So, if this bill passes and a commission is set up, it'll be probably a year before it's there, but it'll allow a citizen to go to the commission to bring a complaint against a town or school board or planning board or any board that is appointed or elected, and say, I asked them for such and such and I didn't get it. Or they had a meeting that wasn't posted, or whatever is covered under right to know.
Correct.
And the ombudsman, who we're hoping the legislature will vote to hire.
An ombudsman, by the way, is just basically a
hearings officer.
advocate for the right to know, not for the person or the town, but basically an objective person to look at the information and call up the town and say, hey, Eric asked for this information. Why didn't you give it to him? And so it's like a mediator. Instead of going directly to court, you'd have a mediator to try to get information for you.
And it'll be cheaper. To go to court is over $250 plus having the sheriff deliver the papers.
And if it's a situation that somebody's really, really uncomfortable, it could cost some thousands of dollars for lawyers. So going to court is simple for you, but most people would be so intimidated they would be inclined to hire a lawyer for $5,000 or $10,000 just to take their town to court to get information that was supposed to be given to them immediately.
That's a good synopsis, and that's exactly right. They would feel like they were taking on Goliath, even though it was their right. They were defending.
Just remember, the town's going to hire a lawyer. You're going to go into court, the little citizen, against the town's lawyer.
Fighting City Hall, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah, literally.
So my idea, after basically 45 years involved in Right to Know, was to somehow set up something that could assure a citizen could enforce their right to know without having to feel intimidated by going to court.
Right.
And that's what this study committee has come up with, recommendations for how it can be set up, and all of the ways the ombudsman will be charged.
Harriet, it's almost time to go. I just want to say that as maligned as politicians are, it's people like you who fight for the little guy and fight for what's right versus what's popular or what's going to get them brownie points in the political sphere that does give us hope that there are people out there that do fight for what's right as opposed to what's convenient. Thank you for doing all that.
Absolutely. As a
You're
New Hampshire
welcome.
citizen, thank you.
I have, I come from a Vermont farmer, and my father told me as I walked the pasture to get the cows,
Don't step in the... No, not that.
Daddy said,
The other thing
when I
is-
would
the other
ask, and little kids ask questions, and why,
Oh,
why?
yeah.
Okay.
My favorite question.
And Daddy would say, why? He'd tell me the names of everything, kneel by the pool of water with the pollywogs in it, tell me that in a couple of weeks they'd have legs, and sure enough, he'd bring me back to see the legs. But his biggest educational thing to me was, if you don't ask a question, you're never going to know.
Right.
Don't feel dumb for asking. Only somebody who is dumb will ever intimidate you for asking a question. Because if you don't know, how else are you going to learn?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean,
Amen.
I mean, to me, that's... If you have a child that's not curious, you need to slap him. Because...
Well, I wouldn't slap
I don't know
them.
about that. But
No?
encourage them. I don't know.
Taser?
Tasers are okay.
Yeah.
On,
Well, you got a stick.
that is my
My husband
that
and
work?
I,
staff.
my
Staff.
husband and I probably spanked our children. I had 4. 3 times total out of 4 children.
Wow.
And the reason we spanked was because they played with matches.
So,
My oldest son caught himself on fire.
well, what I do is I usually give them tannerite.
And that way,
Yeah. Yeah, so they
That
can
way
look.
it's over fast.
It's over quick. Yeah. It's not.
No.
I have a theory about that. My theory is that guys are inclined to allow children to do more dangerous things because the only part of the equation they really enjoy is making the children, not actually raising them.
I'm not sure I subscribe
I'm just
to that theory.
saying that's my theory.
Gary, you're talking to the girl who walked the big steel bridges that had the arches?
Yeah. We used to
Oh,
have one
sure.
coming into Bridge Street.
Well,
Used to be.
I
that one.
never went across the bridge on the walk.
No.
I went up over the arch.
There, yeah.
You are a hot ticket.
And
Hey, we
See
got.
ya.
We,
that was always my way.
Thank
Th-
you for the
thank you
work
very
do.
much, young
It's
lady.
inspiring. We
thanks for
appreciate
hanging
it.
out with me, Wizard of
Oh,
something. I don't know.
apparently Eric's back. I don't know.
Eric's
Scared
back.
the wizard away.
I scared the wizard. Yes, I'm intimidating like that.
You know.
Hey, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for coming.